They say destiny whispers, but on the night Adana returned, a billionaire's wallet destiny screamed. The moment she placed the expensive leather wallet into Kelechi Okonjo's hand, his expression shifted shock, disbelief, and something darker flickered across his eyes. Not because she had returned it, but because he had seen her face before, somewhere impossible, somewhere tied to a tragedy he had buried years ago. Under the bright hotel lobby lights, Adana simply bowed and tried to slip away her worn shoes, scraping the marble floor. But Kelechi didn't move. He stared after her like a man seeing a ghost walking in daylight. And then, he followed her. Through crowded Lagos streets into dim alleys past markets, shutting for the night until she reached a crumbling shack at the edge of the slums. What Kelechi found there made his breath stop cold, because inside that shack lived a child who carried the same eyes as the brother he lost. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. And if you enjoy stories like this, feel free to subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next chapter. Kelechi Okonjo stood frozen outside the small shack, the night breeze stirring the edges of his tailored jacket. He had followed the poor maid only out of suspicion at first, an instinct honed by years of betrayal, boardroom traps, and shadows trailing his family's wealth. But nothing could have prepared him for what he saw through the half-broken window. A little boy, maybe 6 or 7, sat on a rickety wooden stool, humming softly as he arranged a few stones on the dusty floor. The dim lantern light flickered across his face, illuminating features. Kelechi had spent years trying to forget the deep brown eyes, wide and soulful, the sharply defined brows, the faint dimple on his left cheek. They were the same eyes his brother Emeka had, the same dimple, the same familiar softness that used to calm Kelechi whenever life became too heavy. His pulse hammered in his throat. It had been 7 years since Emeka disappeared. 7 long years of reporters, investigators, false leads, and sleepless nights. Everyone said Emeka had been killed. Everyone said there was no coming back. But standing there watching that child laugh alone in the dim shack, Kelechi felt something claw its way up from deep inside him. Fear, hope, confusion, longing, all tangled into one breathless ache. Inside, Adana bent down beside the boy. "Chima, did you eat anything since afternoon?" she asked, gently brushing dust from his cheek. Chima grinned up at her, showing the tiny gap between his front teeth. "Auntie Adana, I waited for you. I wanted us to eat together." Her shoulders loosened with a tired smile. "You should not wait. You need to grow strong." "I'll grow," he said confidently, "stronger than all the boys in school." "You will." She kissed his forehead, then stood and reached for a small pot on the old charcoal stove. "Let me warm the rice. Today was tough." Chima tilted his head. "Because you cried when the hotel manager shouted." Adana froze. Kelechi did too. She didn't answer immediately. She simply stirred the pot, her movements, slow and burdened. "I wasn't crying," she murmured. "Smoke got in my eyes." Chima squinted at her. "Auntie, that hotel doesn't have smoke." Adana let out a quiet laugh, soft, strained, and heartbreakingly real. "You know everything, don't you? I know when you're sad." She paused, hand hovering over the pot. For a moment, her face crumpled, just for a second. Then she straightened, forcing brightness into her eyes, before turning back to him. "Eat first, then homework." Chima saluted dramatically, making her laugh again, this time less painfully. Kelechi watched the small scene unfold with a tightness in his chest. He wasn't sure how long he stood there, seconds, minutes, maybe longer, but the longer he watched, the more questions gnawed at him. Why did that boy look like Emeka? Why was Adana someone who clearly had nothing raising him? What connection could she possibly have with a billionaire family, and why did she seem like she was hiding someone else's burden behind every smile? He didn't realize his feet had carried him closer to the door until his shadow stretched across the floor inside. Adana stiffened. She turned sharply, her eyes widening as she saw the tall figure in the doorway. "Kelechi," she gasped, clutching the edge of the table to steady herself. "Why? How? What are you doing here?" Chima blinked at the stranger. "Auntie, who is he?" Kelechi stepped inside slowly, careful not to appear threatening. Yet his presence filled the tiny room, making it feel even smaller. "I followed you," he said bluntly. His voice was calm, but there was a tremor beneath it, an echo of old wounds reopening. Adana swallowed hard. "Followed me? Why would you? What did I do?" "You returned my wallet," he replied. "And when I looked at you, something felt familiar. I needed answers." Her brows knitted. "Familiar? I've never met you in my life." "Maybe you haven't," he said softly. "But him," he pointed at Chima. Adana instinctively stepped in front of the boy. "What about him?" she demanded, her voice shaking. Kelechi hesitated, searching her face for deception. Fear, lies, anything. But all he saw was exhaustion and a mother's instinct to protect. "Why does he look like my brother Kelechi?" finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Adana's lips parted in shock. "Your brother, Emeka Okonjo," he said. "Do you know that name?" The color drained from her face. She didn't speak, didn't blink, didn't breathe. And that silence was all the confirmation he needed. "You do," he said, quietly stepping closer. "Tell me how. Tell me everything." Chima looked between them anxiously. "Auntie Adana, what's happening?" "It's nothing," she whispered, forcing a smile. "Go inside. Please." "But now, Chima." The boy obeyed, reluctantly disappearing behind a thin curtain that separated the room. When he was gone, Adana sagged into the nearest chair, as though her legs could no longer hold her weight. "Kelechi," she said, whispering his name like an apology she hadn't yet spoken. I don't know what you think you saw, but this isn't what you imagine." "Then explain it to me," he insisted. "Who is that boy? How is he connected to my brother?" "I can't," she murmured, burying her face in her hands. "Please, leave us alone." "I can't," he said firmly. "Not until I know the truth." She stayed silent. Kelechi took a slow breath, steadying himself. 7 years ago, my brother disappeared. The police gave up. The case went cold. But seeing that child, Adana, I need to know if Emeka, if he left anything behind, if he was ever here, if he... Her head snapped up, eyes glistening with restrained pain. "Stop," she said, voice cracking. "Please. You don't know what you're asking. Then help me understand." For the first time, something hardened in her expression, fear wrapped in determination. "Even if I told you," she whispered, "you wouldn't believe me. Try me." Adana rose slowly, each movement heavy with reluctance. "There are things better forgotten," she said, her voice trembling, "and there are truths that destroy more than lies ever could." Kelechi stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The truth about my brother can't destroy me more than losing him already did." Their eyes met, hers full of secrets, his full of desperation. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Then a sudden sound broke the tension, a harsh cough from behind the thin curtain. "Chima." Adana rushed toward him instinctively. Kelechi followed, not too close, but close enough to see the boy's small body trembling with fever. His heart clenched. This wasn't just a mystery. This was a child who needed help. Whatever resentment, suspicion, or fear existed, it all tangled with something else now: responsibility. "We need to get him to a hospital," Kelechi said, instantly shifting into purpose. Adana shook her head. "No, I don't have money for it. I didn't ask," he said firmly. "I said we need to go." She looked torn, terrified, and yet relieved. Finally, she nodded. As Kelechi lifted the weak boy into his arms, Chima stirred, blinking up at him. For a moment, they stared at one another, curiosity in the boy's gaze, shock in the man's. Then Chima whispered something so soft, so unexpected, it made Kelechi's entire body go cold. "Uncle." Not sir, not stranger, uncle. Because that was exactly what Emeka used to call him. Adana froze. Kelechi froze. And suddenly everything became even more complicated. The drive to the hospital was a blur of rushing headlights, uneven breaths, and the faint fever-weak murmurs of the child lying in the backseat of Kelechi's car. The wind whipped past the windows carrying fragments of Lagos nightlife music, shouting engines, yet inside the car, everything felt unnaturally still. Adana sat rigid, her hands clenched so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Kelechi kept glancing at the boy through the rearview mirror, unable to silence the pounding inside his chest. Chima rested his head weakly against the seat, eyelids fluttering. "Uncle," he whispered again, voice barely there. Kelechi's grip on the steering wheel tightened until his fingers ached. He wasn't a man who believed in coincidences, not in business, not in life, and certainly not when it came to his brother's death. He had spent years chasing shadows, threads, rumors. And here he was, unexpectedly confronted by the one thing every investigator had failed to find a living link. "Why did he call me that?" he finally asked, voice low but edged with something sharp. "He's never seen me before." Adana stared straight ahead, refusing to meet his eyes. "He's a child. He's feverish. He doesn't know what he's saying," but her voice quivered, and that quiver was enough. "Stop lying to me," he said, not in anger, but in a quiet plea he hadn't intended to reveal. "You know something." Her shoulders trembled. "Not everything needs to be said. Everything about Emeka does." She closed her eyes, holding back whatever truth threatened to spill out. The car screeched to a halt under the emergency canopy. Nurses rushed out when they saw the limp child in Kelechi's arms. In minutes, Chima was taken inside, disappearing behind white curtains and bright lights. The moment he was out of sight, Adana sagged against the wall, barely catching herself before she slid to the floor. Kelechi stood beside her, breathing hard, trying to regain control over the storm inside him. "Tell me now," he said quietly, "before the doctors come back, before anything else happens. Who is that boy?" Adana pressed her palms to her face. "I told you, I can't." "You can," he said. "You just won't." She let out a broken sigh. "If I tell you, your life won't be the same. Neither will his. Or mine. My life hasn't been the same for 7 years." Behind them, nurses pushed equipment across the floor. Doctors called out orders and monitors beeped steadily. Life moved. Time moved. But for the two of them, everything felt suspended. "I'm tired of chasing ghosts," Kelechi whispered. "I need answers. Don't make me chase you too." Her breath hitched. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then in a voice so quiet he almost missed it, "I knew Emeka." The words hit him like a slap. He stepped closer. How her eyes glistened. "Not like you think. We weren't lovers. We weren't friends. Nothing like that. I met him by accident." Where his voice sharpened. "On the old Benin highway," she said. "I was carrying food back to my mother. A car crashed nearby. I heard the explosion. I ran toward it." Kelechi's chest tightened, memories of police reports, grainy photos of twisted metal flashing through his mind. "That was his car," he whispered. "Yes," she swallowed. "When I reached the wreck, he was still alive, barely breathing, hurt everywhere." Kelechi felt dizzy. "They told me he died instantly." She shook her head. "He didn't. He tried to pull someone from the back seat." She paused, and in that silence the world seemed to tilt. "Chima?" Kelechi asked. Her voice cracked. "A baby. No more than a few weeks old. A baby someone had tried to kill alongside him. The air left his lungs." "What? He begged me to take the child," she whispered, tears gathering. "He said people were after him, that the baby wasn't safe. He pressed this tiny locket into my hand and said, 'Protect him. Don't let them find him.' And then he didn't move again." The corridor spun around Kelechi. He gripped the edge of a chair. Emeka had died alone, hurt, terrified. Dying not for himself, but to save someone else's child. "And you kept him?" Kelechi managed to ask. "What else could I do?" Her voice wavered. "I was 17. Mother was sick. I had nothing. But I couldn't leave a baby to die." A deep silence filled the space between them, heavy and consuming. "Why didn't you come forward?" he finally asked. A tear slid down her cheek. "Because the men who tried to kill him returned." Kelechi froze. "They came to my village 2 days later," she continued. "Asking questions, searching houses, threatening families. Someone must have seen me at the crash site. My mother told me to disappear before they found the child. She saved me by sending me away." Her voice cracked. "She died 2 months later. I was alone with the baby. No money, no protection. I used a false name. I moved constantly. Until Lagos." Kelechi felt something hot burn behind his eyes. His brother hadn't died in an accident. He'd been hunted, and a poor teenage girl had carried the burden of his last wish. "What about the locket?" he asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. "It's still with me," she said. "I never opened it. I thought maybe one day when Chima was older." Kelechi nodded slowly, his mind piecing together fragments of every unanswered question from the past 7 years. But something didn't align. "If they were after the baby," he said, "why did they stop?" "They didn't," she whispered. "I think they found me again recently." His heartbeat dropped. "What makes you think that?" She hesitated. "For the past 2 weeks, someone's been following me. Not you, someone else. A man in a black SUV, sometimes a motorcycle. I see him near the hotel. Near our street. Everywhere." Kelechi stiffened. "Why didn't you tell anyone? I'm used to dealing with things alone." "And now?" She looked toward the operating room where Chima lay. "Now I'm scared." For the first time since they met, Kelechi reached out and gently touched her shoulder. She flinched at first, then slowly let herself breathe. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "Whatever danger you've been running from, it's my danger now too." Before she could respond, a doctor approached them. "Mr. Okonjo," he asked. Kelechi straightened immediately. "Yes." "How is the boy?" "He's stable for now," the doctor said. "High fever, malnutrition, and signs of long-term stress. He needs tests. Better living condition. Consistent care." Adana's voice trembled. "Can we see him?" "In a moment." The doctor glanced at Kelechi. We also need details for billing. Are you the guardian? Adana opened her mouth. But Kelechi spoke first. Yes, I'll handle everything. She turned to him, eyes wide with confusion. You're helping us. Even after everything I hid from you, you didn't hide something, he said softly. You protected a child my brother died protecting. That makes you the only ally I have in this. Her lips parted, her breath unsteady. Before she could speak, a nurse called the doctor away. Then came a sound, sharp, metallic, echoing from outside the emergency doors, the roar of a motorcycle. Kelechi stiffened. Adana's face drained of color. The bike idled for a moment, then sped away. Kelechi turned to her slowly. Is that the sound you've been hearing? He asked. Her trembling answered for her. He exhaled deeply. Pack your things tomorrow, he said. You and the boy are coming with me, she blinked. What, to your house? To my estate, he corrected. It's the only place with enough security to keep you both alive. I don't know if you don't have a choice, he said, not unkindly. They found you. You're not safe out there. A long silence passed. Then, with a voice barely louder than a breath, thank you. Not gratitude. Surrender. Trust. Fear. All in one fragile whisper. They walked toward the recovery room together, the weight of a secret 7 years old pressing down on both of them. Behind them, unnoticed by the hospital staff, a man stepped out from behind a pillar, helmet in hand, eyes dark, watching, waiting, and smiling. The next morning arrived with a gray, muted sky, as if Lagos itself sensed something shifting beneath its surface. Adana barely slept in the hospital chair beside Chima's bed. Every creak in the corridor, every passing shadow behind the curtain, every distant sound of a motorcycle gnawed at her nerves. Her body ached, but her mind was in even worse condition, tangled with fear, guilt, and a strange kind of hope she didn't dare name. Chima lay curled under the thin blanket, his small hand resting on the stuffed lion toy one of the nurses had given him. The fever had broken sometime after dawn, but the boy looked fragile, exhausted, far too thin for his age. Seeing him like that broke something inside her. When the door opened, she jolted to her feet. It was only Kelechi, but he didn't look like a billionaire this morning. His suit was gone, replaced by dark jeans and a simple shirt. His expression was sharp, focused, and haunted by whatever thoughts had kept him awake through the night. Morning, he said softly. She nodded. He slept a little. That's good. He walked to the bedside and looked at the child, as if he were staring at a piece of his past. Something fragile he was afraid to touch. Adana watched him, wary but grateful. His presence was heavy, intimidating, but also oddly steadying. It felt like standing near something immovable, something that could shield her, even if she didn't fully trust it yet. Pack your things, he said quietly. We leave as soon as the doctor clears him. She hesitated. You meant that truly your estate is no place for people like us. He turned toward her. People like you saved my brother's dying wish. People like you kept a child alive that wasn't even your own. So don't tell me what you deserve. Her breath caught. He wasn't praising her. He wasn't flattering her. He was stating a fact. One she had fought against for years. Suddenly the door swung open again. A nurse entered with a clipboard. Mr. Okonjo, she said, the paperwork is ready. The boy will be discharged by afternoon. Good, he replied. We'll be prepared. She left. Then silence. It stretched between them until Adana forced herself to speak. I need to go home first, she said, to pack our clothes. And there are things I can't leave behind. I'll send my driver with you. No, she said quickly. That will attract attention. I need to go alone. Kelechi studied her. You think they're watching the hospital? Her throat tightened. I know they are. His jaw tightened. Then you're not going alone. You can't come with me, she insisted. You're too noticeable. Everyone knows your face. If those men see you in that neighborhood, he stepped closer, cutting her off with a fierce whisper. I'm not letting you walk into danger again, not after last night. She looked at him, stubborn yet trembling. You don't understand, she said. Those men, they're not regular thugs. They don't leave witnesses. They won't care who you are. His expression hardened. All the more reason to confront this head on. No, she grabbed his arm before she could stop herself. If they see you, they'll know something is up. They'll know I'm not alone anymore. And then they'll go after Chima harder. Please, let me do this quietly. He stared at her hand on his arm. Slowly, she released him. A long moment passed before he finally exhaled, defeated but not fully convinced. Fine, he said. But I'm not letting you go unprotected. I'll be careful. No. He pulled a small device from his pocket, sleek black, no bigger than a pen. This is a tracker. Clip it inside your shirt. If something happens, if you so much as stop moving for too long, my security team will find you. Her mouth fell open. You have a security team. I'm a billionaire, he said flatly. I have several, she sighed. That's intimidating. It's necessary. He handed her the device. She hesitated, then tucked it beneath the collar of her dress. Then he handed her a phone, simple, discreet, unfamiliar. What's this? A secure line. Only 2 people have the number. Me and the head of security. Use it if anything feels wrong. Adana stared at the objects in her hands, the tracker, the phone, and she felt something she hadn't felt since the night her mother died. Safety. Shaken, she looked up. Thank you. You're not thanking me, he replied. You're letting me do what I should have been doing years ago, protecting the last thing my brother died for. She blinked. The last thing. Did he mean the baby? Or her too? Before she could ask, he nodded toward the door. Go. Before someone else sees you awake. When her taxi pulled into the slum neighborhood, Adana's heart pounded so hard, she feared the driver might hear it. The street looked too quiet, unnaturally so. Vendors who normally opened early were missing. Stray dogs weren't roaming. A stillness hung in the air like a warning. She paid quickly and stepped out, pulling her worn shawl over her head. She walked fast, but tried not to look afraid. Fear attracted attention. Fear made predators notice. Her tiny shack appeared at the end of the alley, leaning slightly to one side as if tired of being alive. She unlocked the door and slipped inside. The air smelled stale, like someplace already abandoned. She swallowed hard and began packing 2 pairs of shoes, 3 dresses, Chima's shirts, his little carved wooden toy lion, and the old metal box beneath her bed. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside lay the things she feared most and needed most. The locket, silver, small, untouched since the day Emeka pressed it into her palm. For 7 years she had never opened it. Now she wondered if she should. Her fingers hovered over it. A floorboard creaked outside. She froze. Another creak. Slow, deliberate. Her blood turned to ice. She reached for the phone Kelechi gave her, but before she could dial, the front door creaked open. A shadow fell across the room. A man stepped inside slowly. Tall, broad, dressed in black. A faint scar running down his cheek like a lightning strike. His voice was calm, too calm. You move a lot, Adana. Her stomach dropped. He knew her. Not her fake names. Not her changed addresses. Her. She swallowed. You're mistaken. He raised a gloved finger. Don't lie. Not to me. She stepped back until her spine hit the wall. The man smirked. You have something that belongs to my employer. She clutched the metal box behind her. I don't. Oh, you do. He stepped closer. A child. Her heart slammed against her ribs. He knew. He knew. I don't know what you're talking about, he chuckled. You've managed to hide him for years. Impressive. But everything ends eventually, even your luck. She slipped her hand behind her back, searching blindly for the phone. The man took another step, then another. Where is the boy? She closed her eyes. If she stayed silent, she would die. If she answered, she would betray Chima, so she said nothing. The man smiled coldly. Very well, I'll search, and when I find what I want, he pulled a knife from his jacket. You won't be needing that pretty voice anymore. Suddenly, a loud voice boomed from outside. Adana, open up. Her eyes widened. Not the man. Another voice, a familiar one. Police, the intruder hissed. No. Her heartbeat soared. Not police. Kelechi. The man's face twisted into annoyance. He backed toward the window. This isn't over, he whispered. Then he slipped out just as the door burst open. Kelechi rushed in, eyes blazing, breath heavy. Are you hurt? She shook her head, too shaken to speak. He crossed the room in 2 steps, grabbed her shoulders, and pulled her into his chest. I lost your signal, he said, voice rough. I thought something happened to you. Her breath hitched. I'm fine, she whispered. No, you're not. He looked around the room, the open door, the disturbed dust, the broken window latch. He had seen enough. We're leaving, now. But no arguments. He grabbed the metal box, then her bag, then her hand. They know where you live. They'll come back. Her voice trembled. Kelechi, he knew me. He said someone sent him. He stopped. His eyes darkened. Then we're running out of time, he said. Much faster than I thought. As he led her outside, she whispered, what do they want with Chima? He didn't answer right away. When he finally did, his voice was barely a breath. They want what my brother died trying to protect. Her hand tightened in his. Kelechi, what did Emeka know? He swallowed hard. Something that could destroy a very powerful man. She stared at him, his expression hardened to stone. Obinna, my brother's business partner, and the man who ordered his death. Her heart stopped. Obinna, the man now hunting her and the child. The man with enough power to crush anyone who crossed him. So that's why they want Chima, she whispered. Yes, he said, because if the child lives, Obinna's empire falls. The weight of his words struck her like a blow. She clutched the locket to her chest, and somewhere deep inside, for the first time in 7 years, she knew the truth inside it might destroy everything. Or save them all. The ride to Kelechi's estate was nothing like the quiet, tense drive to the hospital the night before. This time the tension felt alive, breathing, twisting, crawling over Adana's skin like cold fingers. She kept glancing out the window, terrified she would spot the motorcycle again. Every approaching vehicle made her flinch. Every shadow seemed to move. Kelechi didn't speak for the first 20 minutes. His jaw was tight, his fingers rigid on the steering wheel. The rich leather interior and tinted windows couldn't hide the war raging inside him. He was a storm barely contained. Finally, he said, "You should have told me earlier." His voice wasn't angry. It was something worse, wounded, frustrated, afraid. "I didn't know if I could trust you," she whispered. He nodded once. "That's fair." She looked down at her hands. They were still trembling from the confrontation with the scarred man. "If you hadn't shown up," her voice cracked. "I wasn't going to let anything happen to you," he said quietly. "You didn't even know me," she replied. "I knew enough," he said. "I knew you were carrying a burden that wasn't yours. And now that burden is connected to my family. That makes it my responsibility." She swallowed. "He said his employer wanted Chima?" "Yes. And that means Obinna knows he's alive." Kelechi's fingers tightened. "Obinna knows everything eventually. That's his power." She looked out the window again as Lagos's chaotic outskirts faded into more affluent districts. "But why?" she whispered. "Why kill Emeka? Why hunt a baby? What could possibly be worth that?" Kelechi exhaled slow and heavy. 7 years ago, Obinna Lal was nothing more than my brother's business partner. They built companies together, invested together, trusted each other. But Emeka discovered something about him, something illegal, something that could destroy Obinna's entire empire. "What was it? He never told me," Kelechi said with quiet fury. "He only sent a message before he disappeared. If something happens to me, protect my son." Adana's head snapped toward him. His son Kelechi finally looked at her. "Chima isn't just any baby he saved, Adana. He's family." Her breath hitched. "You mean?" "Yes." He swallowed. "Emeka had a child no one knew about. Not our parents. Not me. No one." Adana felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "So Chima is," my nephew Kelechi finished, "the rightful heir to everything Emeka built and the greatest threat to Obinna's lies." Her heart pounded in her chest. She had spent 7 years raising a boy whose existence could topple an empire. "I didn't know," she whispered, shaking her head. "I thought he was just a child caught in something terrible." "He was Kelechi," said softly. "But he's also more." She pressed a hand to her forehead, overwhelmed. "I'm not cut out for this. I was just trying to keep him alive." "And you did." Kelechi's voice softened. "You did what even I couldn't." She looked at him, her eyes burning. "I didn't do enough. You did everything he insisted. You saved him." She didn't respond. But in her silence lay years of fear, loneliness, exhaustion, all the things she had endured without ever expecting recognition. The car turned down a long private road lined with tall palm trees and modern street lamps. Security gates appeared ahead, guarded by men in dark uniforms. They saluted as Kelechi approached. "This is your home," she whispered. "Yes, it feels like another world, it is." He slowed the car. "And nobody enters without permission." The gates opened silently, and the car rolled inside. The estate was enormous gardens, trimmed to perfection, fountains glowing under the warm light, multiple buildings connected by stone pathways. But it wasn't the beauty that made Adana stare. It was the safety. She hadn't felt safe in 7 years. "Chima will be protected here," Kelechi said. "And so will you." She hugged herself tightly. "I don't belong in a place like this." "That's not your decision anymore," he replied gently. Inside the mansion, warm light filled the marble hallways. A woman in her early 50s approached, tall, elegant, stern, dressed in a crisp uniform. "Ngozi," Kelechi said. "This is Adana." She and the boy will be staying with us. Ngozi's eyes flicked over Adana, taking in her worn dress, her tired eyes, her trembling hands. Her expression tightened, not cruelly, but with suspicion. Very well, sir, she said calmly. Their rooms are prepared. Adana felt unbearably small under the woman's scrutiny. She kept her eyes down, clutching her bag. Kelechi noticed. Ngozi, he said firmly, they're guests. Treat them as such. Ngozi bowed slightly. Of course, she led Adana down a hallway, adorned with family portraits. The further they walked, the quieter and more luxurious the space became. It's normal for her to be cautious, Kelechi said behind them. She's been with my family for 20 years. I understand, Adana murmured. People like me, we don't walk into mansions without a reason. Kelechi stopped walking. People like you, he repeated. She nodded. Poor. Uneducated. From nowhere. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're the woman who carried my nephew across 3 states, survived alone, hid from killers, and protected him with nothing but faith. Don't you dare call yourself small when you've done more than anyone in this house ever has. Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Ngozi cleared her throat, reminding them she was still present. They reached the guest wing with 2 connected rooms, one for Adana, one for Chima. Soft cream blankets, polished wooden floors, gentle lighting, warm air. It felt unreal. This is too much, Adana whispered. It's the bare minimum, Kelechi replied. Get some rest until Chima arrives. He's with the nurses still, yes. They'll bring him as soon as the discharge is completed. Adana nodded, her weariness finally catching up with her. Thank you. As Kelechi turned to leave, she asked quietly, what happens now? He paused. Now, he said, now we prepare. For what? For Obina's next move. Her heart pounded. What if he comes here? He won't get past the gate, Kelechi said. But he doesn't need to. He has influence, power, money, and he's desperate. That makes him dangerous. She swallowed. Then what do we do? He looked at her with eyes that held both fire and determination. We expose him. Adana stared. How? I don't know yet, he admitted. But whatever evidence Emeka died protecting, it must be somewhere. And now that we have the boy, we have the key. The key, she repeated. What do you mean? He gestured to the metal box she was still holding. The locket, he said. Emeka wouldn't give it to you unless it meant something, unless it was important. Her heart raced. You think it contains something, but it's tiny. Size doesn't matter, he said softly. Secrets don't need to be big. Her fingers tightened around the box. Will you open it? He asked. Her breath trembled. I don't know, she whispered. I'm afraid of what that once the truth comes out, everything will get worse. Kelechi stepped closer. Sometimes, he said gently, the truth is the only thing that can stop the nightmare. She closed her eyes. Then footsteps echoed down the hallway. A nurse appeared carrying a sleeping Chima in her arms. Adana rushed forward, taking the boy carefully. He looked peaceful, too peaceful for a child hunted his entire life. Kelechi watched them silently. Rest, he said. Both of you. Will you be okay? She asked. He gave a small, tired smile. I haven't been okay for years, Adana. But now, I finally have something worth fighting for. Their eyes met, and something unspoken lingered between them, a fragile thread woven from shared danger, shared loss, and the thin beginnings of trust. As Adana gently laid Chima on the soft bed, she murmured, We'll open the locket tomorrow. Kelechi nodded. Tomorrow? Neither of them noticed the security camera blinking above the doorway, or the tiny red light that had not been there earlier. Someone else was watching. Someone who already knew tomorrow would change everything. Night settled over the estate like a velvet curtain, soft and deceptive hiding storms beneath its calm surface. The mansion's security lights glowed along the pathways, guards patrolled quietly, and the distant hum of the city faded into the background. But inside the guest wing, Adana sat on the bed, wide awake, staring at the small silver locket resting in her palm. Chima slept soundly beside her, his breathing steady. The peaceful rise and fall of his chest should have soothed her, but instead it made her heart ache. She had spent 7 years keeping him alive, without ever knowing whose blood ran through his veins until now. Kelechi's words echoed, He's my nephew, the rightful heir. The key to exposing Obina. She closed her eyes, letting the truth settle like a weight across her shoulders. Whatever was inside this locket had been important enough for Emeka to die protecting. Important enough for killers to hunt a baby. Important enough to chase her across half the country. Just open it, she whispered to herself. Her thumb brushed the latch, but she stopped. Not because she was afraid for herself, but because the moment she opened it, Chima's life would change forever. A soft knock startled her. She quickly hid the locket beneath her pillow. "Come in," she said quietly. The door opened, and Kelechi stepped inside. He was still dressed, his eyes sharper than earlier, his posture tense. "You're awake," he said. "So are you." He nodded, glancing briefly at the sleeping child. "I wanted to check on him. He's better. The fever is gone." "That's good." He hesitated, then added, "We need to talk." Adana shifted uncomfortably. "Now, it can't wait." He pulled up a chair beside her bed. She expected sternness, questions, strategies, but when he looked at her, there was something softer in his eyes. "Earlier today, he began, when I saw that man in your house. When I thought I had lost your signal, I realized something." What she asked quietly, "That you've been fighting this battle alone for too long." She didn't speak. He continued, "You may not realize it, but you're not just some girl who stumbled into danger. You're the only reason my nephew is alive. You're the reason Emeka's sacrifice wasn't wasted." Tears built in her eyes, unexpected and overwhelming. She turned away, embarrassed. "Please don't say things like that." "Why not?" he asked gently. "Because I'm not strong. I'm not brave. I ran. I hid. I lied to survive." He leaned forward, voice firm. "You survived. That is bravery." She shook her head. "I didn't do it right. I didn't do enough. You did more than I ever could." His voice cracked. "I'm the one who failed. I should have found him sooner. I should have protected him. I should have." She reached out impulsively and grabbed his hand. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't blame yourself." He froze at her touch. For a moment, neither of them breathed. Then he gently pulled back, not rejecting her but steadying himself. "There's something else I need to tell you." Adana braced herself. "What is it?" "The man who followed you today," his expression hardened. "He's not just Obina's employee. He's one of his enforcers, someone hired to eliminate threats quietly." Her stomach twisted. "He knew my name. He'll report back," Kelechi said. "Obina will learn you survived the crash. He'll learn that you kept Chima alive." Adana's breath trembled. "What will he do?" "He'll come after you again. And this time he won't stop until he gets what he wants." "Chima," she whispered. "Yes." She stared down at the boy's sleeping face. He looked innocent, untouched by the darkness surrounding him. But that innocence wouldn't survive if they failed. "Kelechi," she said slowly, "if Obina finds out Chima is Emeka's son, he won't just want to hide him. He'll want him dead, won't he?" Kelechi didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence was confirmation enough. Adana wiped her eyes, forcing herself to breathe. "We have to open the locket." Kelechi nodded. "I thought the same." She reached under her pillow, pulled it out, and set it between them. The small silver surface reflected the warm lamplight. "Will you do it?" she asked. "No," he said softly. "It was given to you. You open it." Her hand trembled as she lifted the locket. For the first time she noticed it wasn't perfectly smooth. Tiny engravings lined the rim. "Letters?" "Kelechi," she whispered, "there's writing here." He leaned in. "What does it say?" She squinted closely. "It's initials." He inhaled sharply. "Let me see." She passed it to him. He held it under the lamp. EOL. His face changed. Emeka Olumide Lau, he murmured. His brother's full name. Adana's heartbeat quickened. The locket belonged to him. Maybe, Kelechi said slowly, it contained something he wanted the child to have. "Like what? Something Obina couldn't destroy," he said quietly. "Something small enough to escape notice." Her breath hitched. "Then we need to open it." He nodded. She took the locket back. Her fingers steadied, her breath deepened. Then click, the latch released. She opened the locket. Inside was a key. Small, metallic, strange, unlike any house key she'd seen. "What is this?" she whispered. Kelechi took it carefully. "Not a storage key, not a house key. It's a vault key." Her eyes widened. "A bank vault?" "No." He stared at it with dawning horror. "A personal vault. A vault that belongs to who Emeka," he breathed. "He must have stored something before he died." Adana felt cold all over. "Something dangerous," he nodded. "Something Obina would kill for. And it's been with Chima all along. Protected by you," he said softly. She swallowed hard. "Where is the vault? There's only one place it could be." He stood abruptly. "The old Okonjo archives." She frowned. "What's that?" "A private property my father built decades ago. It used to store sensitive documents and family records. Emeka had access. Obina did too. But after the accident, the place was abandoned. No one's been there in years. Then why didn't Obina check it? He doesn't know about the key, Kelechi said. Or he assumed Emeka destroyed whatever evidence he had. She clutched the blankets. So what do we do now? We go there, he said. Tonight. Her eyes widened. Tonight, with Chima sick, he'll be safe here, Kelechi said firmly. With guards, with locked doors, with cameras. And you shouldn't come. It's too dangerous. She stood. No. I'm going. He stared at her. Adana, you're not leaving me behind, she said fiercely. Chima is my responsibility. I've risked my life for him for years. You think I'll sit here while you walk into danger? He hesitated, then nodded. Fine, he said, but we leave in 30 minutes. Adana grabbed her shawl, preparing to change into something less noticeable. The room felt suddenly colder. Just as she turned toward the door, she noticed something strange. The little red camera light above the doorway was blinking. She frowned. Kelechi, she whispered, was that light there before? He turned quickly. His expression darkened instantly. He stepped closer to the camera, inspecting it, then cursed. What is it? She asked, fear rising. That's not our equipment, he said. Someone hacked into the system. Her blood ran cold. So they've been watching us, she whispered. Not us. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. They were watching the locket. Before she could respond, a loud crash erupted from somewhere inside the mansion. Glass shattered. Men shouted. Then gunfire. Kelechi grabbed her arm. They found us, he said. Adana's breath caught in her throat. Obina's men are here. The sound of gunfire ripped through the mansion like thunder cracking the night in half. Adana froze her breath, caught in her chest, her ears ringing as reality shattered around her. Guards were shouting orders somewhere down the corridor, their footsteps pounding across marble floors. Shards of glass clinked across the tiles like scattered rain. Kelechi grabbed her wrist again, firm, steady, urgent. Move, he whispered. But Adana's first instinct wasn't to run. It's Chima, she cried, stumbling toward the door. He's alone in the next room. Kelechi pulled her back sharply. He's guarded. 2 men outside his door. My team knows what to do. Her panic sharpened into something fiercer. No, I have to. He cupped her face suddenly, forcing her to look at him. His voice dropped low and unshakable. Adana, listen to me. The safest place for Chima right now is exactly where he is. If we run toward the chaos, we'll lead attackers straight to him. Her chest heaved. But the gunshots, it's a diversion, he said. They want us to panic. They want you to run to him. His words struck her hard. Yes, that's exactly what she would have done. Exactly what the killers expected. Her legs trembled beneath her. Then what do they want from us? Kelechi glanced at the blinking red camera light. The key, he said darkly. They know we found it. Another explosion rocked the opposite wing of the mansion, this one deeper, heavier, shaking the windows and causing a framed portrait to crash from the wall. Kelechi cursed under his breath. They're trying to break through the east barrier. It won't hold long. The hallway lights flickered once, twice, and then stabilized. Adana swallowed hard. We have to get to Chima. We will, he said. But first we need to secure the key. If they take that from us, nothing will protect him. His words cut through her panic like a blade. The key, the vault, the evidence. Everything hinged on this tiny silver object, now tucked into Kelechi's pocket. I know a way to get Chima out safely, he said. But we need to reach the control room. From there, my team can lock down the estate and secure a passage out. Is it far? She asked, breathless. Down 2 floors, he said. But we're taking the service stairs. These men aren't amateurs. They'll expect us to use the main path. She nodded, fear turning into grim resolve. Then let's go. They slipped into the hallway, moving quickly but silently. The further they walked, the clearer the danger became. Smoke drifted faintly through the air, acrid biting. Alarms blinked red along the ceiling. A guard sprinted past them, rifle in hand. When he saw Kelechi, he skidded to a stop. Sir, we've contained the breach in the garden, but they got through the southern wall. We're holding them off, but... How many? Kelechi asked. 6, confirmed, the guard replied. Maybe more in the shadows. They came prepared. Military precision. Kelechi's face tightened. Stay with your men. Keep the attackers away from the guest wing at all costs. Yes, sir. The guard darted away. Adana bit her lip. 6 men. Against how many guards do you have? Not enough, Kelechi muttered. Obina never plays fair. He led her to a narrow door tucked behind a decorative panel. It opened into a dim stairwell that spiraled downward. Hurry, he urged. They descended quickly. The air grew cooler and the sounds of battle muffled until only a distant echo remained. Each step felt like a countdown 10, 9, 8 towards something irreversible. Halfway down, Adana finally spoke. "Why is this happening now?" she whispered. "Why tonight?" "Because we opened the locket," he said. "Or because someone saw us open it." Her stomach dropped. "You mean the camera? They hacked my security system," he growled. "Not even my best tech team could detect it. Obina must have hired specialists." She gripped the railing to steady herself. "So they've been watching us since the moment we arrived." "Not us," he corrected. "You." The words hit her like ice water. "Why me?" "Because you remember the crash," he said. "Because you saw Emeka alive. Because you kept the boy hidden. You're the only living witness left." Her heart hammered wildly. "So they'll kill me to erase the past." "Yes," he said quietly, "and kill Chima to erase the future." She stumbled, but he caught her arm quickly. "Adana," he said, "I won't let that happen." His voice was firm, grounding, almost too steady for the chaos surrounding them. They reached the lower landing. Kelechi cracked the door open and peeked outside. Clear. He motioned for her to follow. The corridor was empty, silent, except for the faint security hum. They hurried past storage rooms and emergency supply lockers until they reached a heavy metal door with a keypad. Kelechi typed a code. The lock clicked. Inside was a small room with screens covering an entire wall, each showing a different camera angle. Hallways, gardens, entrances, staircases. Men in black moved like shadows across several screens, overwhelming guards firing staggered shots cutting through the estate with ruthless precision. The security chief, a stern older man named Madhu, stood beside the monitors barking orders into a radio. He turned when he saw them. "Sir, thank God. We've secured the north corridor, but we're losing the east." "What the hell are you doing bringing her here? She's safer with me," Kelechi snapped. "What's the situation?" Madhu pointed to a monitor. 3 attackers breached the inner compound. They're sweeping room by room. They're searching for something. The boy, Adana whispered. "Or the key," Madhu said. "Whichever they find first." Kelechi stepped forward. "Activate the emergency lockdown. Seal all exits. No one gets in or out." "Already done," Madhu replied. "But sir," he hesitated, "you need to see this." He switched to another screen. Adana's breath left her body. The scarred man she saw earlier, the one who entered her shack, was inside the mansion, now walking casually down a hallway, as if he owned the place. He carried a suppressed firearm, moving with eerie calm. He paused at a door. Chima's door. "No," she gasped. But 2 armed guards stood between the attacker and the child's room. The intruder didn't attack them, he only smiled and walked past, disappearing around a corner. "He's mapping the estate," Kelechi said softly. "Looking for a blind spot." Adana clasped her hands to her chest. "How long until he finds one?" "Not long," Madhu muttered. Kelechi turned to him. "Get Chima to the panic room." "Already on it," Madhu replied. 2 guards escorting him now. Adana felt a momentary wave of relief. But then, the lights flickered again. The screens glitched. A loud warning alarm blared. Madhu slammed his fist on the control panel. "They're hacking the inner grid. They're trying to disable our cameras." Kelechi grabbed his arm. "Madhu, listen to me. They won't stop until they get what they're looking for. We can't hold them here. Then we evacuate the boy." "No." Kelechi shook his head. "They'll be waiting outside." "Then what?" Madhu demanded. Kelechi turned slowly toward Adana. His eyes sharpened. "We go to the vault," he said. "Now." She blinked. "During an attack, that's exactly why we go," Kelechi replied. "The vault is underground, reinforced. If we reach it first, we can secure the evidence and use it to negotiate or destroy Obina entirely." Madhu stared at him. "Sir, that place has been abandoned for years. We don't even know if it's safe." "We're out of time," Kelechi said. "It's our only chance." The screens flickered again, this time darker, more violent. An attacker fired at a camera and the feed went black. 5 seconds later, another screen cut out, then another. They were closing in. Adana felt her pulse in her throat. "Kelechi," she whispered, "what if we don't make it to the vault?" "We will," he said. "But if we don't," he stepped closer, his voice low, steady. "If anything happens," he said softly, "I need you to know you didn't fail him. You saved him. And now it's my turn to save both of you." Her throat tightened. "I don't want anything to happen to you." His eyes softened, slow, intense, unexpected. "Then stay close to me," he whispered. "And trust me." She nodded. Madhu handed Kelechi a gun, then looked at Adana. "Stay behind him at all times. Don't make a sound. Don't panic. And if anything happens, run." She swallowed. "What about Chima? He's protected," Madhu said. "But you two go. Kelechi reached for her hand. "Ready?" he asked. "No," she whispered, "but I'll go anyway." He squeezed her fingers, a fleeting reassurance. Then he led her out of the control room and into the darkened corridor. Behind them, another camera flickered out. The attackers were closing in. Ahead of them lay a vault that might save or destroy them all. And somewhere inside the mansion, Chima's fate hung by a thread. The hallway felt longer than any road Adana had ever walked. Each step echoed in her ears like a countdown, steady, heavy, unstoppable. Kelechi moved ahead of her with deliberate caution, his body angled protectively, his eyes scanning every shadow as though danger lived inside each one. The mansion, once warm, elegant, and impossibly grand, had transformed into something else entirely. A battlefield, a maze, a trap waiting to close. Faint smoke drifted through ventilation shafts. Floors trembled from distant clashes. Somewhere above, a guard shouted before a muffled blow silenced him. Adana's heartbeat thudded so loudly she feared it would draw enemies to them. "Stay close," Kelechi whispered, not looking back. She did so close she could feel the tension radiating off him, so close she could smell the faint hint of gunpowder already clinging to his clothes. They reached a service elevator tucked behind a wall panel. It looked old, older than the rest of the mansion, but Kelechi punched a code into the keypad without hesitation. The panel slid open with a groan. "We're taking this," Adana asked, voice trembling. "It goes down to the archives," he said. "The vault is on the lowest level, and if Obina's men find the elevator, they won't," he said. "This one isn't on the main schematics." Her eyebrows lifted. "Why not? It was built for emergencies decades ago," he explained. "Only my father Emeka and I knew about it. And now me," she murmured. Something flickered in his expression. Something unreadable. "Yes," he said softly. "Now you." They stepped inside. The doors creaked shut. The elevator shuddered before descending with surprising speed. The dim overhead bulb flickered. Adana clutched her shawl. "Kelechi, what if the vault is empty?" "Then we find something else," he replied. But Emeka wouldn't leave something so important unprotected. "And what if Obina already got there?" Kelechi's jaw tightened. "He didn't. He doesn't know the vault exists. If he did, he wouldn't be here tonight. He'd be cleaning his tracks, not hunting us." The elevator lights flickered again, longer this time. Her breath hitched. "Is that normal?" "No." His hand hovered near the emergency exit hatch. "Something's interfering with the power." A crackling noise filled the shaft, then the elevator jolted violently. Adana stumbled, nearly falling. Kelechi caught her arm. The elevator lurched again, then screeched to a halt. Everything went dark. A thin emergency bulb flickered to life overhead. Adana's throat closed in fear. "Why did it stop?" Kelechi pressed a button on the panel. "Nothing." He tapped it again. Still nothing. Then he swore under his breath. They cut the power to the lower levels. Obina's men. Or the hack they launched earlier. He tried the manual override. No response. "They're hitting every security system at once." Panic rose inside her like a tide. "We're trapped." "No." He grabbed a crowbar from the elevator's emergency panel. "We climb." He wedged the crowbar into the hatch and pried it open with a grunt. Cool, dusty air swept down from the elevator shaft. "You go first," he said. "No," she whispered. "I'll slow you down." He grabbed her chin gently, forcing her eyes to meet his. "You are not slowing me down," he said, firm but soft. "You're the reason I'm doing this." Her breath stilled. He meant it, more deeply than she expected. She nodded. He boosted her upward hands steady at her waist until she could grip the edge of the hatch and pull herself through. The shaft above was narrow, lined with rusted metal rungs and thick cables. She clung to the ladder, trembling. Kelechi followed her, pulling himself onto the ladder with ease despite his broad build. The hatch closed beneath them with a hollow clang. "Up," he whispered. She climbed, rung after rung. Her fingers burned, her arms trembled. The shaft felt endless, the faint red emergency bulbs offering just enough light to remind her how high they were. She dared not look down. "Kelechi," she whispered shakily. "I'm right behind you," he said. His voice was steady, grounding. "Keep climbing." So she did. Halfway up, a metallic clank echoed above them. Then another, and another. Someone else was in the shaft. Adana froze. Kelechi looked up sharply. A shadow moved near the upper level, slow, purposeful, descending. "Go," he hissed. Now her hands slipped, but she forced herself upward. Every muscle screamed in protest. The shadow grew closer. A glint of metal flashed something sharp in the intruder's hand. Adana whimpered, "He's coming for us!" Kelechi reached into his waistband, pulled out the pistol Madhu had given him, and aimed upward. "Keep climbing," he urged. "But don't look back." She climbed faster than she thought possible, fueled by terror. The attacker dropped one rung, then another. Closer, closer. Kelechi fired. The shot echoed like thunder inside the narrow shaft. The attacker shrieked, but didn't fall. Instead, he clung harder, snarling like a wounded animal. Adana's heart hammered. "Kelechi, he's still coming, I know," he grunted, firing again. This time the bullet struck true. The man's grip faltered. His knife clattered down the shaft, missing them by inches. Then a sickening thud far below. Silence followed. Adana clung to the ladder, panting. Kelechi rested his head briefly against the metal rung, breathing hard. "We don't have much time. Others will come." She nodded shakily. They resumed climbing. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a narrow platform near the upper maintenance door. Kelechi pushed the grate aside and helped her crawl through. They tumbled onto a dark basement corridor lit by faint red emergency lights. Adana collapsed against the wall, chest heaving. Kelechi crouched beside her. "Are you hurt?" "No," she gasped, just terrified. "Good." He offered a small, tense smile. "It means you're still alive." She let out a shaky laugh, half relief, half exhaustion. They stood and followed the corridor until it widened into a broader underground hallway. Dust coated the walls. Old file cabinets lined the sides, their labels faded. "This place feels abandoned," she whispered. "It is," he said. "No one's been here since my father's death." They reached a metal door with a biometric lock, now powerless due to the blackout. "That's it," he said. "The archive vault." But the power he reached inside a panel and pulled a manual override lever. With a groaning sound, the heavy bolts retracted. The door creaked open. Inside lay a large room filled with vintage safes, filing drawers, sealed metal containers, and old family records. Dust particles floated in the dim light. Adana clutched the key. "Which one?" Kelechi scanned the room, eyes narrowing. "Emeka would hide something close to him," he murmured. "Something symbolic." Her gaze swept over the room. Then her eyes caught on a small safe in the corner, paint-faded edges worn. On its front was the engraving EOL, the initials from the locket. "Kelechi," she whispered, pointing. He moved toward it slowly, reverently, as though approaching a grave. Adana knelt beside him and lifted the key. Her hands shook. "You open it," he said. "No," she whispered. "This is your brother. This is your family. You open it." Their eyes locked. Raw emotion flickered in his. He took the key, slid it into the lock, and turned it. The safe clicked open. Inside was a flash drive, a sealed envelope, and a tiny notebook with Emeka's handwriting on the cover. Kelechi's face went pale. Adana's breath caught. Before they could touch anything, a voice echoed coldly from the doorway. "Well done," it said. "You found it for me." They turned sharply. The scarred man stood in the entrance, a gun aimed directly at them. The vault had become a trap. The sight of the scarred man standing in the vault doorway froze the air itself. The overhead emergency light flickered dimly, casting jagged shadows across his sharp features. His eyes, cold, calculating, pitiless, looked from Adana to Kelechi and finally to the open safe behind them. The gun in his hand didn't waver. "Well," he drawled, lips curling into a cruel smirk. "You two have been busy." Adana instinctively pressed back until she felt the cold metal of the cabinet behind her. Her heart thudded so loud she thought he might hear it echoing. Kelechi stepped in front of her, shielding her without hesitation. The scarred man chuckled softly, protecting her again, touching. His eyes darkened. "But pointless. What do you want?" Kelechi growled. "You already know," the intruder replied. "I want what's in that safe, the flash drive, the notebook, and the letter. Hand them over." Kelechi straightened, chin-high, voice unwavering. "No." A flicker of irritation crossed the man's face. "You don't want to test my patience. Not tonight. You broke into my home," Kelechi snapped. "You threatened the people I care about. You hunted a child. Trust me, patience died a long time ago." The scarred man tilted his head, amused. "Ah, so that's how it is." His gaze sharpened. "You think you can protect your brother's secrets? Protect the boy, protect her." His gun shifted slightly, aiming at Adana. Kelechi stepped even closer, blocking her completely. "Don't," he warned, voice low and dangerous. The man raised a brow. "Don't what? Shoot her, kill you, take the child." His smile widened. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. Obina doesn't care how many walls he has to break to get what he wants." Adana's breath trembled. Why, she whispered before she could stop herself. "Why kill a baby?" "What did he ever do?" The scarred man laughed. A sound so devoid of humanity she shivered. What did the baby do? He echoed mockingly. He was born. Adana stiffened. You see, the intruder continued, Obina Lal has spent years carving his empire. Corruption, bribery, blood. But the one thing he couldn't control, he pointed toward the safe, was a Mecha Okonjo. The man had evidence. Proof. Enough to bury Obina for life. Adana's stomach twisted. And because the files weren't found after Emeka's death, he said, Obina began hunting loose ends. Loose ends, Kelechi snarled. You mean people? People. Babies. Witnesses. It's all the same. Adana felt bile rise in her throat. Kelechi's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. You'll never leave here alive. The man's smile faded. Maybe. But I don't need to leave alive. I only need the files. Obina has contingency plans, escape routes, safe houses lined across the country. But if this evidence goes public, he loses everything. Adana finished. The scarred man nodded. Power, wealth, influence. Entire corporations crumble. Political allies disappear. You think he'll allow that? No evidence is worth so many lives, she whispered, shaking. Oh, but you're wrong, he said. To men like him, power is oxygen. Without it, you die. He took a step forward. Then another. Kelechi tensed. Adana could feel his muscles coil like springs ready to snap. But the man wasn't pointing the gun at Kelechi anymore. He was pointing at her. Give me the files, he said, or she dies first. Her breath hitched. Kelechi shifted, ready to move. The man flicked the gun. Ah, you move, she falls. A horrifying silence filled the vault. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Adana could barely speak, but she forced out, Don't risk your life for me. Kelechi didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on the intruder. His voice was steel. I'm not risking my life, he said. I'm protecting my family. Her heart cracked. Before she could say anything else, the scarred man snapped. Enough. Toss the contents of the safe onto the floor. Slowly, Kelechi didn't move. The gun jerked toward Adana's forehead. Now, Kelechi's jaw clenched. He reached into the safe. Adana's pulse hammered. But she noticed something the scarred man hadn't. Kelechi had kept one hand behind the open vault door, hidden, gripping something, perhaps another tool, a weapon, a distraction. She didn't know what, but his stillness was too controlled to be surrender. He pulled out the flash drive, then the envelope, then the notebook. He bent slightly as if preparing to drop them. The scarred man smirked triumphantly. That's right, he crooned. Just as Kelechi lowered his hand, a sharp beep echoed from the hallway. The scarred man stiffened. What is that? Kelechi's lips twitched. The panic lock. He straightened. My team activated the final protocol. Adana's eyes widened. What does that mean? It means, Kelechi said softly, all doors in this wing are about to seal shut. The scarred man snarled. You're bluffing. Another beep. Louder, insistent. This one echoed through the vents. Then heavy metal slamming. One door, two, three. Clang, clang, clang. The vault door began to swing, slowly at first, then faster. The scarred man's face drained of color. No! No! He lunged forward, gun aimed at Kelechi. Adana acted before she could think. She threw herself sideways, ramming her shoulder into the attacker with every ounce of strength she had left. The gun fired, a deafening burst exploding near her ear. Sparks shot across the metal floor. The intruder stumbled, thrown off balance. Kelechi lunged. He slammed into the man, grabbing his wrist. The gun tumbled away, clattering across the vault. The scarred man punched Kelechi hard, sending him crashing into a filing cabinet. Papers scattered everywhere. Kelechi groaned but pushed himself back up. The intruder lunged for the fallen gun. Adana screamed, Kelechi, he dove. The vault door slammed fully open, not to close them in, but to isolate the hallway. A wall of reinforced steel panels dropped from the ceiling behind the intruder, trapping him inside the vault room with them, but sealing off any possible escape route for his reinforcements. The scarred man snarled, clutching the gun. You're dead, he spat. Both of you. He raised the gun. Everything slowed. Kelechi shoved Adana behind him. The intruder pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed. A tiny cough click sound echoed through the room. Kelechi moved like lightning, faster than she had ever seen him. He grabbed a rusted metal bar from the wall and struck the man's wrist with brutal precision. The gun fell again. The scarred man lunged with a growl of rage, but this time Kelechi's fist connected squarely with his jaw. Another blow, and another. The man collapsed unconscious. Silence crashed over the room. The flashing emergency lights glowed dimly against the cold vault walls. Adana stared at the scene, shaking. Kelechi dropped the metal bar chest, heaving knuckles bloody. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Kelechi turned toward her. "Are you hurt?" he asked, voice sharp with fear. She shook her head numbly. You saved me." He stepped closer, gripping her shoulders gently, steadying her trembling form. "No," he said, voice low and fierce. "You saved me. You distracted him. You gave me time." She swallowed hard. "I didn't think. I know." His voice softened. "I know." She looked up at him, their faces only inches apart. The dim light cast shadows across his jaw, his eyes full of worry, fury, something deeper. "Kelechi," she whispered. But before he could respond, a crackle sounded from the intercom. "Sir, security breach in the West Wing." Madhu's voice boomed. "We have movement near the guest corridor. They're trying to reach the boy." Adana's heart stopped. "No," she gasped. "Chima." Kelechi's expression hardened into something dangerous. He spun toward the vault door. "We're going," he said. "But what about the evidence?" she cried. He grabbed the flash drive, the notebook, and the envelope, stuffing them into his jacket. "We take it with us," he said. "If they want the boy, they'll have to go through me." He grabbed her hand. His grip was strong, unwavering. And together they ran, toward the boy, toward danger, toward the next storm waiting for them above ground. The sprint back up the corridor felt endless. Every step pounded like a drumbeat, urgency, fear, desperation, all merging into one unstoppable rhythm. The underground air was stale and cold, but sweat clung to Adana's skin. Her lungs burned, her legs trembled, but she refused to stop. Not while Chima's life hung in the balance. Kelechi ran beside her, slightly ahead, gripping her hand so tightly their fingers hurt. His other hand protected the inside of his jacket, where the evidence rested: the flash drive, the notebook, the sealed letter. 3 tiny objects capable of destroying a monster. Alarms blared overhead, sharp, shrill, insistent. Red lights strobed along the walls, casting their faces in flashes of crimson. "What if they reached him already?" Adana gasped between breaths. "They haven't," Kelechi said before she could finish. His voice shook with fear he refused to show. "Madhu won't let them. And neither will I." She wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. But images haunted her mind. Chima alone in a room, terrified, surrounded by darkness and unfamiliar men. Her stomach twisted. "Run faster," she whispered to herself, forcing her legs to move. They reached the end of the corridor where the maintenance staircase connected to the main mansion. As they pushed through the door, they were met by chaos. Smoke, gunshots, shouting. A guard slid across the marble floor in front of them, blood staining his uniform. He was still breathing, but barely. Another guard fired down the hallway before being struck and falling beside his comrade. Adana slapped a hand over her mouth to stifle a cry. Kelechi grabbed her waist and pulled her behind the nearest wall, shielding her from view. "Stay down," he hissed. I can't let him be alone," she whispered. "You won't. But staying alive is how you reach him." Footsteps thundered toward them. Kelechi pushed her into an alcove and stepped out just enough to aim his pistol. His face was stone-focused, fierce, terrifying. 2 attackers rounded the corner. Kelechi fired twice, hitting the first in the shoulder and the second in the leg. They fell screaming. Kelechi, Adana whispered, trembling. "There are too many." "Yes," he said, "which is why we go now." They dashed past the fallen attackers and turned down the west corridor. That was when the estate shook. A booming explosion ripped through the hallway, throwing them off balance. Plaster rained from the ceiling, lights flickered violently. Smoke rolled in thick waves. "They're using explosives," Adana gasped. "They're desperate," Kelechi growled. "They need the boy." They pushed through the smoke, reached another hallway, and froze. A man lay unconscious on the floor. One of the guards assigned to Chima. "Oh no!" Adana cried. Kelechi knelt, checking the guard's pulse. "Alive. Chloroform. That means they took him," she whispered. "Not necessarily," he said, standing abruptly. "There should be 2 guards." He looked around sharply. "Where's the second?" Before she could answer, a shout echoed from further down the hallway. "This way, protect the boy." Adana's heart lurched. "That's them." She sprinted toward the voice, ignoring Kelechi's command for caution. He immediately followed, swearing under his breath. They rounded the corner and saw a sight that made Adana's blood freeze. Down the hallway near the far end, a guard cradled a terrified, crying Chima in his arms while running toward the panic room. Behind him, 2 attackers chased relentlessly. One aimed a gun. Adana screamed, No, Kelechi shoved past her, sprinting with desperate speed. Madhu, cover them! The head of security appeared from a side corridor, firing 2 precise shots that forced the attackers to duck behind pillars. Get him inside the panic room! Now Madhu roared at the guard holding Chima. Chima reached out through tears when he saw Adana and screamed, Auntie Adana! Her heart shattered. I'm coming, baby, she cried, running despite the danger. Kelechi grabbed her before bullets could reach them and pulled her behind a marble column. Stay behind me. But he needs me. He needs you alive. Kelechi leaned out, fired twice, and forced the attackers to retreat further. Move, Madhu shouted. They're regrouping. The guard carrying Chima reached the panic room door, a thick vault-like structure embedded into the wall. He slammed his hand onto the biometric pad. The heavy door slid open. Hurry, Adana screamed. But as the guard stepped inside, a gunshot sliced through the hallway. Adana froze. The guard stumbled. Chima screamed. Blood splattered across the doorframe. No, Adana shrieked, sprinting forward. Kelechi lunged, grabbing her at the last second as another shot rang out, striking the wall inches from where her head would have been. The guard fell to his knees, still shielding Chima with his body. It was enough. Madhu barreled forward, firing relentlessly, forcing the attackers back. Get the boy inside, he bellowed. Adana slipped out of Kelechi's grip and rushed forward as the guard pushed Chima toward her with his trembling hands. Take him, the guard gasped. Go, she grabbed the child just as the man collapsed fully unconscious. Chima sobbed into her chest, clinging desperately. Auntie Adana, they were going to take me, they said. Hush, she whispered, voice breaking. I've got you. You're safe now. Kelechi reached them in seconds. Inside. Both of you. Adana rushed toward the panic room door. She crossed the threshold, but before Kelechi could step inside with them, another explosion tore through the hallway. The shockwave slammed into him, throwing him backward. Kelechi Adana screamed. Dust and debris clouded the air. He struggled to rise, then an attacker charged from the side and tackled him. Kelechi, she cried again, voice cracking. Madhu fired at the attacker, forcing him off, but 2 more men stormed through the smoke. Adana tried to run back, but the panic room door was closing automatically. No, no, she screamed, pounding on the thick metal. Stop it. He's out there, stop it. Kelechi staggered to his feet and looked at her through the narrowing gap, dust covering his face, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. His eyes burned with fear, not for himself but for her and Chima. Adana, he rasped, protect him. Don't open the door. No matter what. I can't leave you, she sobbed. You're not leaving me, he whispered. You're saving us. The door closed further. No, Kelechi, I go, he roared, shoving himself forward to block 2 attackers from reaching the door. Adana screamed as the thick metal sealed shut with a deafening clang. She fell to her knees, shaking, holding Chima tight while pounding the door with her fist. Kelechi! Silence, then fighting, shouting. Gunfire, something heavy crashing, then nothing, absolute silence. Chima sobbed into her chest. Auntie, is Uncle Kelechi gone? She held him tighter, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. No, she whispered, though her voice trembled. He's alive. He has to be alive. But deep inside, terror twisted its claws around her heart. What if she was wrong? What if the door had closed on the last moment she would ever see him? And what if Obina's men had finally captured the man who vowed to protect them? She pressed her forehead against the cold metal door, whispering one desperate prayer after another. Please, please let him be alive. Outside the panic room, beyond the sealed door, chaos consumed the mansion. But inside the small fortified room, Adana held Chima close as the world raged around them, waiting, trembling, fearing the worst, and knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The panic room hummed with the low vibration of reinforced steel, the sound so constant and cold it seeped into Adana's bones. She held Chima on her lap, rocking him gently as his sobs quieted into hiccuping breaths. The room was small, barely larger than a storage closet, but packed with emergency supplies. A medical kit, water, bulletproof glass screens, showing limited security feeds. A thick metal door sealed them from the chaos outside. But no amount of reinforced walls could seal her heart from terror. Kelechi was out there, fighting alone. Maybe bleeding, maybe... She pushed the thought away violently. No, he was alive. He had to be. He would not fall, not when he had fought so fiercely to protect her and Chima. Not when he hadn't yet fulfilled the promise burning behind his eyes. Chima's fingers gripped her dress tightly. Auntie, is it my fault? They're hurting people because of me. Her heart broke in a way no bullet could replicate. "No, baby," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "None of this is your fault. You didn't choose any of it. But they said they needed me," he sniffled. "That I belong to someone powerful." Her chest tightened. "You belong with people who love you," she murmured, "and you are safe with me. Always." He buried his face against her chest, trembling. She stroked his hair, trying to calm him, while her own fear clawed at her insides. Minutes passed, or hours. It was impossible to tell. Time warped in the silence. Only the soft glow of the battery-powered screens illuminated the room. She forced herself to look at them. Most feeds were dark-cut or destroyed. But one camera overlooking the West Wing hallway flickered weakly, showing blurry shadows and indistinct shapes. "Please, show me something," she whispered. The camera struggled. Lines of static streaked across the screen. Then it cleared for a moment. A figure moved, tall, broad-shouldered, walking with a limp. "Kelechi," she breathed. She leaned closer, heart pounding. "Is that Uncle Kelechi?" Chima whispered, wiping tears from his cheeks. Adana squinted. Yes, it was him. Blood streaked his shirt. His breathing looked heavy-labored. He braced himself against the wall as he walked. But he was alive. "Oh, thank God," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Chima smiled weakly. "He's coming for us." Her relief was short-lived. Behind Kelechi, a shadow moved. Someone stepped out from behind a destroyed column. The scarred man, alive, holding a gun. A strangled sound caught in Adana's throat. "No! No, no, no!" Chima gasped. "Auntie, what do we do? What do we do?" She wanted to scream, to break the door, to run out there and protect him. Instead, she clutched the edge of the screen helplessly as her pulse roared in her ears. The scarred man raised his gun, aiming at the back of Kelechi's skull. Her breath stopped. She slapped the intercom button on the wall and screamed with every ounce of strength she had, "Kelechi, behind you!" Her voice blasted through hidden speakers across the corridor. Kelechi jerked around instantly just as the bullet fired. He dove to the floor. The shot missed by inches. The scarred man growled in frustration. Adana screamed again, "Fight, Kelechi!" But the feed turned to static. "No, no, don't go out, don't go dark, please!" She slammed the screen in desperation. "Static, nothing else," Chima whimpered. "Auntie, he's fighting," she whispered, wiping angry tears. "He's fighting, he won't stop." Her hands trembled violently. If only she could do something, anything. She was trapped in a steel box, while the man who had risked everything for them fought for his life. She stood abruptly, her chest heaving, her mind racing. There had to be something. Then she noticed something strange in the corner of the room. A small console, one she hadn't paid attention to before. A manual speaker override, connected to every hallway speaker in the mansion, including the corridor where Kelechi fought. Her hands shook as she approached it. "Chima," she whispered, "come with me." She knelt beside the console and pressed a button. "Manual override, active," a robotic voice said. "Input command." "What are you doing?" Chima asked softly. "Helping him," she whispered. "The only way we can." She grabbed the microphone attached to the console and took a steadying breath. If the attackers heard her, it didn't matter. If they taunted her, it didn't matter. If she gave Kelechi even 1 second of warning, 1 moment of distraction, it could save his life. She pressed the button. Her voice echoed through the hallways. "Kelechi, stay low. He's still armed. He's circling left." She paused, listening. Distantly through the thick panic room walls, she heard gunfire. Not one shot. Many. Then silence. Her breath lodged in her throat. "Kelechi," she whispered. "Kelechi, nothing." She nearly collapsed, but then the screen flickered back on. The hallway camera reconnected for a split second. Her breath caught. Kelechi stood, barely bloodied arms shaking but alive. At his feet lay the scarred man, unmoving. Chima gasped. "He did it!" Adana pressed a hand to her mouth, sobbing with relief. "Kelechi, you did it." On the feed, he wiped blood from his eyes, reached into his jacket, checked the evidence, and then stumbled toward the panic room. She clutched her chest, but something felt wrong. His movements were unsteady. His knees buckled once. He reached a wall and used it for support. Chima frowned. "Auntie, he looks hurt." "Yes." Her voice shook. "He's hurt badly, but he's coming here." The hallway in the camera grew brighter as emergency lights kicked in. Then another figure entered the hallway. But it wasn't Kelechi, not an attacker, not Madhu. A man in a dark suit stepped into view, calm, composed, untouched by the chaos around him. He clapped once, slow, mocking, cold. Adana felt her blood turn to ice. She had never seen him before, but she knew who he must be. The way he stood, the arrogance in his smile, the chilling stillness in his eyes. Obina Lau. Behind him, two more men emerged, arms silent, deadly. Kelechi Obina said smoothly, voice amplified through the faint audio feed. "What an impressive mess you've created." Kelechi forced himself to stand straighter, gripping the wall to keep from collapsing. Obina walked closer. "Where is the child?" he asked. Kelechi spit blood on the floor. "Far away from you." Obina laughed softly. "We'll see." Adana nearly collapsed. "No! No, no, no!" She lifted Chima, forcing herself to stay calm for him. "We must stay quiet," she whispered, heart-pounding. "Don't make a sound." Chima nodded, hiding his face in her shoulder. Obina approached the panic room door. He ran a hand along the steel. "Do you know," he said conversationally, "that panic rooms are only useful if those inside remain undiscovered?" He placed his palm against a panel. The system scanned him. "Locked, unauthorized user." He smiled. "Oh well," he murmured. "I have other methods." He snapped his finger once. One of his men stepped forward with a small black case. He opened it. Inside were tools not for picking locks, for blowing them open. Adana's heart erupted in terror. "No," she mouthed. "No, please." Kelechi pushed himself off the wall, stumbling but determined, stepping between Obina and the panic room. "You'll go through me first," he said, voice hoarse. Obina didn't even blink. "I plan to." He snapped again. Two gunmen raised their weapons and aimed directly at Kelechi. Adana choked on a silent scream. Chima sobbed softly into her shoulder. The panic room walls felt suddenly smaller, tighter. Death was inches away. Then the lights went out. Total darkness. A beat, a click, and a voice. A woman's voice. Familiar, steady. "Step away from him." Obina hissed, "Ngozi." Yes, it was her. And she did not sound afraid. The screen flickered. Adana clutched Chima tighter. Something had shifted. The tide was turning. But whether toward salvation or a deeper abyss, no one could yet tell. Darkness smothered the hallway like a heavy blanket. The shock of the sudden blackout froze everyone. Obina's men, Kelechi, even Obina himself. The only movement was Kelechi's ragged breathing, as he braced a hand against the wall, struggling to stay upright. Then footsteps. Measured, calm. A woman's heels clicking against marble. Ngozi stepped into the faint emergency glow that flickered back to life. The dim red lights washed her face in shadows, but her posture radiated authority, an energy Adana had never sensed before. She wasn't just a housekeeper, not tonight. In her hands, she carried a security rifle. "Aim at that man," Ngozi commanded, her voice sharp as broken glass, nodding at Obina. Two estate guards emerged behind her, weapons ready. Obina's eyes narrowed. "Ngozi, you disappoint me, and you disgust me," she replied, raising her rifle. "Step away from my employer." A muscle twitched in Obina's jaw. "I underestimated you." "Yes," Ngozi said coldly. "Everyone always does." She snapped her fingers and the two guards flanked her, closing in decisively. Obina's two men shifted, preparing for a shootout, but Ngozi spoke again before bloodshed erupted. "Put down your weapons." One of Obina's soldiers scoffed. Or what? Ngozi fired one single bullet. It hit the floor, inches from his boot, sparks flying. The sound echoed down the hall. Her voice did not rise. It didn't need to. "Put them down." The attacker hesitated. Obina glanced at his men, voice steady. "Do it." Both lowered their weapons onto the floor. Ngozi's guards kicked them backward, away from reach. Kelechi finally lifted his head, blinking through dizziness. "Ngozi, you saved my life." She did not look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on Obina with a ferocity Adana had never seen. "I failed your brother," Ngozi said quietly. "I won't fail you." Kelechi's breath caught. You were there that night." Ngozi's expression cracked just slightly. Pain flickered. "Yes," she whispered. "But we'll speak of that later. First we secure you." Before she could give instructions, Obina smiled. A slow, chilling smile. "Do you truly think," he murmured, "that this ends with you holding a gun on me?" The hairs on Adana's arms stood on end. She watched the screen with dread. Her arms tightened around Chima as the tension wound tighter and tighter. Ngozi replied coldly, "It ends with justice catching up to you." Obina chuckled. "My dear Ngozi, if justice were enough to stop a man like me, I would have been dead long ago. Ngozi stepped closer. It's enough tonight. But then, a faint sound echoed down the hall. Metal scraping. A beep. Another beep. Obina's smile widened. You forgot one thing, he said softly. I never walk into a battlefield without escape routes. Before anyone could react, the wall behind him, a decorative panel engraved with rose vines, shifted open with a mechanical hiss. A hidden door, a secret exit. Ngozi's eyes widened. No, don't let him. But Obina moved with serpent-like speed. He shoved one of his own men toward the guards, using the man as a human shield, grabbed the other by the arm, and yanked him into the secret corridor. You can't hide forever, Ngozi shouted, firing a shot at the closing panel. It clanged against steel. The hidden door slammed shut. Silence followed, a sharp, devastating silence. He's gone, Ngozi whispered, lowering her weapon. He had this planned. Adana stared at the screen in horror. He's going to regroup. He's going to find another way in. Chima sobbed into her shoulder, terrified. He's scary, Auntie. She hugged him tighter. I'm here, baby. I won't let anything happen to you. On the camera feed, Ngozi knelt beside Kelechi as he finally collapsed to one knee, clutching his side. Kelechi Adana cried, pressing her hand against the cold screen. It's okay, Ngozi said, supporting him. You're okay. He winced. It's just a graze. I've had worse, Lear Ngozi muttered. But she wrapped his arm over her shoulder and helped him stand. You need medical attention. No, he groaned. Get us to the panic room. Now. Kelechi Ngozi began. Obina knows the boy is the key, he said, forcing the words out through clenched teeth. He won't stop. We need to regroup. We need the file secured. Ngozi hesitated but then nodded. Guards, cover us, she barked. 2 guards stepped ahead, guns raised, scanning for movement. Kelechi forced himself to take steps, each one shaky, unsteady. Blood dripped from a wound near his ribs. Adana sobbed as she watched him approach the sealed panic room door. He's coming, she whispered. He's coming to us, Chima. Chima clung to her neck. Uncle Kelechi, please don't die. She kissed his cheek. He won't, he promised. On the feed, Kelechi and the guards reached the door. Ngozi, he rasped, open it. Ngozi punched a code into the hidden keypad beside the door. The bolt shifted. The heavy metal door slowly slid open. Light spilled into the panic room. There he stood, bruised, bloodied, barely upright, but alive. Adana didn't think. She ran. The moment his silhouette filled the doorway, she threw herself into his arms. His reaction was instinctive. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her tightly against him, despite the pain it caused. She shook as she buried her face into his chest. You're alive, you're alive. I thought I told you. He whispered into her hair, voice hoarse, trembling with exhaustion. I'd come back. Her grip tightened as though her fingers could keep him from ever slipping away again. Chima rushed forward, hugging Kelechi's leg. Uncle Kelechi, you came back for me. Kelechi dropped to one knee, wincing again, and wrapped an arm around the boy too. Of course I did, he murmured. I'll always come back for you. Adana's tears spilled freely. Ngozi cleared her throat softly. We must move. We don't know how many exits Obina has. We need to relocate to the secondary safe house. Kelechi nodded weakly. Yes. We go. Adana wiped her face. But where is safe? The safe house is off-grid, Ngozi explained. Not even Obina can track it. We'll regroup there, examine the evidence, and plan our next step. Adana nodded quickly. Then let's go. As the guards prepared to escort them, Kelechi swayed. His face paled. Kelechi, she whispered. I'm fine, he insisted. Just tired. He collapsed into her arms. She cried out. No! Ngozi rushed over. He's losing blood. We have to move now. Chima grabbed his hand desperately. Uncle Kelechi Adana's heart pounded so hard it felt like it might break. Kelechi, stay with me. His eyelids fluttered. Adana, he murmured faintly, barely audible. Don't let them take the boy. No, she whispered fiercely, holding his face. Don't you dare leave me. Don't you dare. His eyes closed. His body went limp. Adana screamed. Ngozi, help him. Please. Ngozi was already working, shouting orders, her voice shaking despite her composure. Move him, now we don't have time. Guards lifted him onto a stretcher. Adana held his hand the whole time, sobbing, refusing to let go. Chima clung to her side, crying. As they rushed through the smoking corridor toward the hidden exit, Adana felt the world tilt. For 7 years, she survived hell. For 7 years, she protected a child alone. For 7 years, she avoided danger. But nothing terrified her more than losing him. Not now. Not when he had risked everything. Not when she finally understood what he meant to her. She tightened her grip on his cold hand. "I won't let you die," she whispered through tears as they carried him into the night. "I won't lose you too." And somewhere far behind them, hidden in the shadows of the ruined mansion, Obin Alao watched them flee, smiling, alive, unbroken, and more dangerous than ever. The real war had only just begun. The night swallowed them whole, as Ngozi led the group out of the burning estate through a concealed underground passage. The air was thick with smoke and panic, but Adana barely felt any of it. Her world had shrunk into a single point of focus, the unconscious man on the stretcher. Kelechi's face was pale, far too pale, his lips tinged with bluish exhaustion. Blood seeped through the temporary bandages Ngozi had wrapped around his side. Every bump in the tunnel made him grimace, even though he was half-conscious. His breaths were shallow, uneven, frightening. "Kelechi, stay with me," Adana whispered, stroking his forehead. "Please don't leave." Chima, walking beside her, clung to her arm with trembling fingers. "Auntie, he'll be okay." "Right." She hesitated, then forced herself to nod. "Yes, baby, he will." But her eyes betrayed her. The fear in them was raw, unhidden. Ngozi glanced at her over her shoulder. "We're almost there. Keep him awake if you can," how Adana asked, voice cracking. "Talk to him. Call his name. Anything that keeps his mind fighting." Adana nodded rapidly and leaned close to him. "Kelechi, can you hear me? It's Adana. I'm right here." His eyelids fluttered. "Barely. Anna," he whispered faintly, the sound so soft she had to lean close to hear it. "Yes, I'm here," she breathed. "Please don't stop fighting." The tunnel stretched long and dimly lit its concrete walls, damp with condensation. Water dripped rhythmically from overhead pipes, each drop echoing in the dark like a ticking clock counting down his life. They finally reached a rusted service gate. Ngozi slid a keycard into a slot hidden under a metal panel. The lock clicked. The gate opened into another tunnel, this one newer, cleaner, reinforced. Surveillance cameras dotted the ceiling. Ngozi moved fast, leading them deeper inside. "This is part of the old city escape system," she explained quickly. "Your father had it upgraded years ago, Kelechi. Only a few people ever knew it existed." "Did Emeka know?" Adana asked. "Yes," Ngozi said. "And now you." Suddenly a thought hit Adana with shattering clarity. Emeka risked everything to hide evidence. He gave the baby to her. He gave the key to her. He trusted strangers more than family. Why? Her mind raced, but she couldn't think now. Not while Kelechi's life drained out drop by drop. After several minutes of tense, hurried movement, the tunnel opened into a hidden underground parking bay. A black armored SUV idled in the center, engine humming. "Madu," Ngozi called sharply. The security chief stepped out from the driver's seat, sweat and soot smeared across his shirt. "The safe house is cleared. Weapons stocked, supplies ready. Get him in fast." The guards lifted Kelechi's stretcher and slid it carefully into the back of the vehicle. Adana climbed in after him, taking her place at his side without hesitation. Chima squeezed into the small seat near her hip. Ngozi slid into the front passenger seat. "Go." Madhu slammed his foot on the accelerator. The SUV shot forward into the secondary tunnel, racing through the underground grid beneath Lagos. Adana held Kelechi's hand, tightly squeezing rhythmically. "You promised you'd always come back," she whispered. "Don't break that promise. Not now. Not like this." His hand twitched. Barely, but it was enough. Pressure on her finger. A sign of life. She choked on a sob. Ngozi twisted around from the front seat. "Adana, talk to him. Remind him why he has to live." She hesitated. "What do I say? Anything. Just don't let him drift." Adana leaned down until her forehead touched his. "Kelechi," she whispered shakily. "I was alone for 7 years. No family, no safety, no future. Just a child who wasn't mine and a nightmare that wouldn't end. But then you came." Her voice wavered. "You looked at me like I mattered. You believed me when no one else would. You fought for us. You bled for us. So don't let that be the end. Please. Fight your way back. We need you." Chima sniffled and leaned against Kelechi's arm. "Uncle Kelechi, you can't go. I just got you." The SUV sped deeper into the tunnel system. Ngozi lowered her voice. "Adana, he's listening. You need to keep him anchored." Adana swallowed her tears and nodded. She took Kelechi's hand in both of hers and pressed it against her heart. "You come back," she whispered fiercely. "Do you hear me? You come back to me." Outside the windows, darkness flew past like a blur, tunnels, junctions, hidden pathways. Then finally light appeared ahead. A steel door slowly rose, revealing a secluded underground garage, surrounded by blast walls, surveillance devices, and thick reinforced doors. The safe house. They drove inside. The moment the vehicle stopped, guards rushed forward. They slid the stretcher out and rushed Kelechi into the medical room built into the safe house interior. Adana followed, refusing to let go of his hand, until a medic stopped her gently. "Ma'am, you can't be in here," he said. "We need space to work." "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "Please, please, I can't. We'll do everything we can," he said softly. "But you must let us work." Ngozi stepped behind her and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Come. Let them help him." Adana reluctantly released Kelechi's hand. The moment she did, his fingers slipped limply away. It felt like losing him. Again. She collapsed into Ngozi's arms and sobbed as the medical room doors shut her out. Chima clung to her leg, crying quietly, his little body shaking. For a long time, Adana couldn't move. Fear crushed her chest heavier than anything she had ever carried. After what felt like hours, maybe minutes, Ngozi guided her to a small sitting room. "Sit," Ngozi said softly. Adana sat. Chima climbed onto her lap. They held each other. Silence stretched between them, fragile and suffocating. Finally, Ngozi spoke. "You're stronger than you think, Adana." "No, I'm not," she whispered. "I failed him. I should never have let him get hurt." Ngozi shook her head. "You didn't fail him. He chose to protect you. And you saved him more than once tonight." Adana didn't reply. Ngozi let the silence linger, then added, "You're not alone anymore. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Before Adana could respond, the door burst open. It was Madhu. His face was pale. His breath uneven. Adana's heart slammed against her ribs. "Madhu, please tell me he's alive." Madhu hesitated just enough to steal the air from her lungs. Then he said, "He's alive." Adana nearly collapsed with relief. A sob escaped her throat, and Chima cried softly in her arms. But Madhu wasn't finished. "He's alive," he repeated slowly but critical. He woke up once during the procedure." Adana's eyes widened. "He woke up." "Yes," Madhu said. "For only a second." "What did he say?" she whispered. Madhu paused. His voice was strangely soft when he answered. "He asked for you." Her breath caught, and then he passed out again. Tears fell freely down her cheeks as her knees buckled. He asked for her. He thought of her, even while dying. Before she could speak, an alarm suddenly blared across the safe house. Ngozi's eyes widened. "What now?" Madhu grabbed his radio. "Report, what's the situation?" Static crackled. Then a guard's voice broke through, shaken, terrified. "Ma'am, sir, someone found us." Adana froze. Madhu paled. "Who? Only 6 people know this location." More static. Then, "It's Obina." Adana's heart stopped. Chima cried out. Ngozi grabbed for her rifle. "What does he want?" Madhu demanded. The guard's trembling voice responded. "He's outside. Alone. No weapons in sight. He's asking for Adana." Adana felt the blood drain from her face. Chima gripped her tighter, terrified. Ngozi blocked the door, voice sharp. "You're not going anywhere near him." But then, a booming voice echoed outside the safe house walls. Calm, cold, deadly. "Adana, it's time we talked." The safe house walls shook with his next words. "You have something that belongs to me." Adana clutched Chima and felt the world closing in around her again. Silence pressed against the walls of the safe house like a living thing, thick, suffocating, restless. Adana's breath hitched in her throat as Obina's voice echoed again, deeper, this time vibrating through concrete and steel. "Adana," he called, slow and deliberate, "come outside. We finish this tonight." Ngozi's grip tightened around her rifle. "Don't move," she warned, stepping between Adana and the door. "This is a trap. He knows you're the one holding the most important piece now." Chima clung to Adana's waist, shaking so hard she could feel his bones trembling through his clothes. "Auntie, don't go," he cried. Adana sank to her knees long enough to hug him tightly, pressing his head into her chest. "I'm not going anywhere, baby. I'm right here." But her voice cracked. Because deep inside, a terrible truth throbbed. Obina wasn't bluffing. He came for the evidence, yes, but he came for her too. Ngozi, Madhu said, stepping to the control panel. "How did he find us?" "This location is off-grid, encrypted, invisible." Ngozi's expression slowly darkened. "Only one way," Madhu froze. We were betrayed. Adana's heart dropped to her stomach. By who would turn us in? Ngozi's eyes landed on the blinking red light at the top of the wall, the safe house's internal monitoring beacon. It flickered unnaturally glitching. He's hacking, she growled. He tracked us through the breach in the mansion's security system. He's forcing a digital trail. That's impossible, Madhu barked. This safe house was designed by Ngozi, cut him off. Obinna has access to people with global-level hacking experience. Money buys everything. From outside, Obinna's voice thundered again. You think you can hide? That you can cage the truth inside your walls? Adana opened the door. If you don't come out, a pause. A threat laced with perverse calm. I will come in myself. Chima whimpered. Adana swallowed hard, her pulse hammering wildly. She looked at Ngozi, at Madhu, both tense, ready to fight. He wants me, Adana whispered, trembling. Yes, Ngozi said firmly. Because you're the only person he can manipulate emotionally. He thinks I'm weak, Adana muttered, voice cracking. He thinks he can scare me. Ngozi kneeled in front of her, placing both hands firmly on her shoulders. Listen to me. You are not weak. You survived losing everything. You raised a child who wasn't even yours. You carried a Mecca's last wish on your back for 7 years, while the rest of us were too blind or too scared to see the truth. Adana bit her lip, hard tears blurring her vision. Ngozi continued, voice fierce. He wants the drive, the notebook, the letter. He wants the key to his downfall. And because you and Kelechi have it, he will use the only weapon he thinks you fear. Chima. Adana hugged the boy tighter. He'll never touch him, she said, voice shaking with both fear and something sharper anger. Ngozi stood. Exactly, which is why you're not stepping out there. Madhu approached, eyes trained on the surveillance feed that flickered onto the large screen. There he was, Obinna Lal, standing just outside the safe house entrance. Alone. No guards. No masked soldiers. No weapons in hand. Just a man in a perfectly tailored dark suit collar, crisp posture, relaxed, as though he were attending a business negotiation rather than hunting the last remaining threat to his empire. He smiled directly at the camera. Adana, he said into the feed, voice deceptively polite, you and I share a debt, don't we? 7 years ago, your interference cost me a great deal. Adana flinched. My interference, she whispered bitterly. I saved a baby from dying. On the screen, Obinna tilted his head as though hearing her words through instinct alone. You protected evidence, he said coldly. Evidence wrapped in a crying infant. Ngozi stepped closer to the screen rifle at the ready. You bastard, she muttered. Obinna glanced around the hidden compound. You think this bunker can stop me, this little fortress? He chuckled. You forget who controls half the politicians in this country, half the police, half the entire digital mapping system. He pointed upward, stabbing a finger toward the sky. You are already surrounded. Alarms blared inside the safe house, screens flickering to life. Madhu lunged toward the main console. What did he? The outer perimeter cameras showed them black SUVs rolling up the deserted road. Motorcycles fanning out. At least a dozen armed men surrounding the safe house. Obinna stood calmly in their center like a conductor orchestrating a symphony of violence. Ngozi cursed under her breath. Damn him. He forced us into a corner. Adana felt Chima's tiny hands gripping her shirt. Auntie, please. I'm scared. She pressed a kiss onto his forehead. It's okay, baby. I won't let them touch you. But as she said it, her eyes drifted to the sealed medical door across the room, where Kelechi lay fighting for his life. The man who had risked everything for her. The man who had shielded her with his own body. The man who whispered her name, even half-conscious, clinging to life. And now Obinna wanted to tear all of that away. Not just Emeka, not just Chima, not just Kelechi. He wanted to end all of them. Adana stood up slowly. No, Ngozi snapped immediately. Do not think what I know you're thinking. You are not walking out there. I have to, Adana said softly. Chima gasped. Auntie, no. He said he wants you. I know, Adana whispered, placing her hand on his cheek. Which is why I have to go. No, Ngozi said, voice sharp with panic. You step out there and Obinna wins. Adana turned to her, tears streaming but eyes burning with something beyond fear, something like destiny finally catching up. He wants me, she said. Not the guards, not Kelechi, not even you. She lifted the small metal box from the table, the one containing the evidence. And if I go out there with this, she whispered, maybe, just maybe, I can distract him long enough for you to protect Chima. Protect Kelechi. Protect what matters. Ngozi grabbed her arm. No, he'll kill you. Adana smiled sadly. He's been trying to kill me for 7 years. Ngozi's voice broke. Adana, don't do this. But Adana stepped back, shaking her head. This isn't bravery, she whispered. This is survival. For them, not me. She bent down and kissed Chima's forehead gently. Baby, she whispered, choking on tears, listen carefully. You stay with Ngozi. You stay away from the doors, no matter what you hear. Do you understand? No, he cried, clinging to her. I want to stay with you, don't go. Her tears fell onto his hair. I have to do this. No, I love you, she whispered fiercely. More than anything. Madhu stepped back, stunned by the resolve in her eyes. Ngozi's lips trembled. If you step out there, we may not be able to bring you back. Adana wiped her face, steadied her breath, and whispered, I know. Then she turned and walked toward the entrance. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she reached the door, she paused only once. She pressed her hand to the cold steel and whispered, Kelechi, forgive me. Then she unlocked the door. White light flooded in. Obinna's silhouette stood framed in the glow, smiling, waiting, expecting her. Adana stepped out. The door sealed shut behind her. She faced him alone, and the night held its breath. Cold night air slammed against Adana's skin the moment she stepped outside. It sucked the breath from her lungs, stole the warmth from her bones, and made her entire body tremble, not from the temperature, but from the knowledge that she was walking into the lion's mouth. The safe house entrance sealed shut behind her, with a metallic thud sealing Chima and the others inside, sealing her out here, alone. Obinna stood several meters away, hands clasped behind his back posture, relaxed like a man awaiting a dinner companion, rather than the woman who had carried his greatest threat in her arms for 7 years. Floodlights mounted on his SUVs illuminated the clearing, casting long shadows across the dirt and concrete. His men formed a wide semicircle around them, weapons lowered but ready. Adana swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the small metal evidence box. It felt heavier than stone. Obinna smiled as she approached, a slow smile that never reached his eyes. There she is, he said softly. The girl who changed my life and ruined my plans. Adana stopped just outside his reach. You ruined your own plans. All I did was save a dying child. Obinna let out a quiet laugh. And what a saint you were. His eyes gleamed darkly. But even saints bleed. She forced herself not to flinch. I came here alone, Adana said, voice trembling but clear. You wanted me, here I am. Indeed. He stepped closer slowly, almost leisurely. And now, you will hand over the evidence. Her throat tightened. If I give you this, will you leave the boy alone? Obinna tilted his head, studying her with mock interest. That's what you want. A negotiation. Answer me. She lifted her chin. Will you leave him alone? A beat. Then he smiled. No. The single word cut deeper than any blade. Adana tightened her grip around the metal box. Why he's a child. Obinna's lips curled. He is Emeka's heir, and that is enough reason for him to die. Her breath hitched. He continued, people like your precious Chima don't grow up to be threats. They are dealt with early. He tapped his temple. That is how men like me maintain power. Adana shook with fury. You murdered Emeka. You hunted a baby. You nearly killed Kelechi. You destroyed more lives than you can count. And yet Obinna replied calmly, power remains in my hands. Until that he pointed at the evidence box is gone. Adana felt her next breath burn inside her lungs. He stepped forward. Give it to me. Why should I? She whispered. Because if you don't, he said softly, I will burn down that safe house, rip open the steel walls, and take everything you love from the ashes. Slowly, her knees weakened. Starting, he added, with the injured man who risked his life for you. Adana felt tears prick her eyes. Kelechi, he was still fighting for his life, unconscious, defenseless. She couldn't let Obinna get anywhere near him. Her voice trembled. Please, don't hurt him. Obinna's expression cooled. Then give it to me. Silence stretched between them, thick as smoke. Her hands shook. She slowly extended the box outward. Obinna's eyes lit up. Yes, he murmured. Good girl. He reached out, and just before his fingers touched the box, Adana jerked it back to her chest. Obinna froze. Then his smile faded. You're playing a dangerous game. Adana's tears blurred her vision, but her voice carried strength. she didn't know she still possessed. You murdered a good man, she whispered. You hunted an innocent child. You will not take anything else from us. Not tonight. Obina's jaw tightened. Guards. Several soldiers stepped forward. Adana's heart pounded wildly. But she lifted the box higher. You won't kill me, she said. Not until you get this. And you'll never get it. Obina took one slow step closer. What makes you think you control this situation? Adana met his gaze. Because you're terrified of what's inside this box. A flicker of fear, real fear, passed across his face. Just 1 second. But it was enough. Adana continued, voice gaining strength. This isn't just evidence. This is the truth Amika died for. And if you kill me now, you lose the chance to ensure it never sees the light. Obina's composure cracked. You wouldn't risk Chima's life. You already risked it, she shouted. You never stopped. He never had a chance to live in peace because of you. Her voice rang through the clearing, raw and furious. Obina's eyes darkened. Enough of this. He snapped his fingers. 2 soldiers raised their guns. Adana sucked in a breath, but a voice boomed from behind her. Drop your weapons, Ngozi, Adana gasped. The safe house door had opened just an inch, just enough for Ngozi to slip out, rifle raised, eyes blazing. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood Madhu with 2 guards, weapons pointed outward, forming a protective line. And then Madhu spoke into his radio. Positions. Suddenly, red dots danced across the soldiers' chests. Snipers, hidden on the cliffs, on the service tower, on the old drainage bridge. The safe house was never unprotected. Obina's soldiers stiffened, unsure. Obina's eyes burned with hatred. You think you can beat me? Ngozi stepped forward. We already have. Obina's smirk returned. Do you know what separates men like me from fools like you? He asked softly. Ngozi leveled her weapon. Arrogance, no, Obina replied. Preparation. He lifted his wrist slightly. A small device blinked under his sleeve. A detonator. Adana's blood went cold. Kalechi, she whispered. That safe house, Obina said, is full of explosives if I activate this. Ngozi cursed under her breath. Obina smiled smugly. One press, he murmured, and everything you fought for goes up in flames. Adana froze. Chima was inside. Kalechi was inside. Everyone left who mattered was inside. Her vision swam with terror. Give me the box, Obina said calmly, and I deactivate the charge. Adana's pulse roared. Ngozi whispered urgently, Don't trust him. He'll kill us anyway. Obina raised his thumb above the device. Adana saw it happen in slow motion. She didn't think, didn't breathe. She screamed, Stop! And hurled the evidence box, not to Obina, past him, toward the cliff edge. Obina spun around instinctively. Too late. The box struck the ground, bounced once, and skidded toward the cliff. Obina lunged for it. Adana ran. Ngozi shouted. The guards aimed. The snipers adjusted their scopes. Adana reached the cliff first, sliding to her knees, hands scraping against the rocky ground. She grabbed the box just as Obina tackled her. They went tumbling dangerously close to the edge. Dust flew. Adana cried out as Obina pinned her. You stupid girl, he snarled. You think this ends with you winning? She struggled beneath him, gasping for air. Obina's fingers closed around her throat. Her vision dimmed. Then a gunshot. Obina yerked. His grip loosened. Another gunshot hit his shoulder. He screamed. Ngozi's voice thundered from behind them. That's for Emeka. Obina staggered to his feet, blood pouring from his arm, rage twisting his face. You'll all die for this. He raised the detonator, but before he could press it, a rock smashed into his wrist, thrown by Madhu. The detonator flew into the air. Ngozi dove, catching it before it hit the ground. Obina stared at her in horror. No. Yes, Ngozi said, panting. It's over. But Obina smiled. How foolish, he whispered. And in one devastating motion, he turned and threw himself over the cliff, vanishing into the darkness below. Adana gasped, scrambling to her feet, staring after him. Is he dead? She whispered. Madhu shook his head grimly. Men like him don't die easily. Ngozi pocketed the detonator, but he's gone, for now. Adana held the evidence box tightly to her chest, shaking. Let's get Kalechi, she whispered. Ngozi nodded. Yes, he needs you. They rushed back toward the safe house. The moment Adana re-entered, Chima flew into her arms, sobbing. Auntie, you're alive. Yes, baby, she whispered, hugging him tight. But her eyes immediately lifted to the medical door. She walked toward it with trembling legs. A nurse stepped out, saw her, and smiled faintly. He's asking for you. Her heart nearly stopped. She rushed inside. Kalechi lay propped against pillows, weak, but alive eyes half open. When he saw her, his lips curved into a faint smile. "You came back," he whispered. She grabbed his hand, sinking beside him, tears flowing freely. "I thought I lost you," she cried. "Not possible," he whispered. "Not unless you let me go." She shook her head fiercely. "Never." Chima climbed onto the bed, hugging Kelechi's arm. The three of them, connected by fate, pain, and impossible love, held on to each other. Safe. Alive. Together. For now. In life, the things that define us are not the battles we win easily, but the ones we survive when the world is determined to break us. Adana learned that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing love, loyalty, and truth, even when fear tries to crush everything inside you. Kelechi learned that true strength comes not from power, but from protecting the people who matter most. And Chima discovered that family is not written in blood alone, but in sacrifice and unwavering devotion. Let this story remind us evil can hide behind wealth, influence, and arrogance, but goodness, no matter how small, shines brighter when darkness closes in. If this story touched your heart, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next chapter.